sports scene non-stop. Luke Inman is ready to put him on the hot seat.
That's what you're going to do to me?
Instant analysis.
Yanked. Out you go.
Post-game breakdowns and red-hot takes.
The Timberwolves needed stitches.
Reggie and Luke give you a daily dose of Minnesota sports with superior sports talk. Part of Locked On Sports, Minnesota.
Back in the lab, Reggie and Luke back at it. Another episode, Superior Sports Talk, presented by Locked On Sports Minnesota. Got Carol Evans' very own Reggie Wilson with me. Life is good. Hump Day, Reg. How you feeling?
Feeling good, man. Let's get it going.
Yes, sir. They say it's the slow time of sports year, but we got plenty to talk about, like Byron Buxton making the highlight reel in last night's All-Star game, plus ESPN's latest NFL power rankings and where the Vikes enter the season amongst their peers. Later, putting Reggie on the hot seat with what does it mean. All coming up on Superior Sports Talk. Remember, follow along on the Locked On Minnesota YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, and Twitter, smash that follow button at Locked On MIN. To football we go. 55 days. Week 1 of the NFL season kicks off. ESPN's latest article has got a full deep dive into all 32 teams' rankings heading into the 2022 season. Now, this isn't your normal weekly power ranking with, a quick blurb, 3-4 sentences on each squad. No. This is an entire breakdown on each team, top to bottom, from overall roster grade to quarterbacks, even coaching and front offices. So knowing all that, Reggie, out of 32 NFL teams, where do you think the Vikings rank given all the categories that were in play here?
I feel like they probably have them like maybe in the 20 or so range. Is that right?
Never know with you, Reggie. Sometimes you take a sneak peek. Sometimes you go in blind. You like to go in cold turkey. You were close. Vikings ranked 19th on the list. Now, I feel like we did this exact same thing like 3 or 4 weeks ago. I forget what ranking we were looking at, but it wasn't as in-depth and nuanced as this breakdown with each team's draft being weighed in and GMs and coaches, etc. But I do remember saying to each other, man, feels like the Vikes are a little low on here. They had them ranked in like the low teens. Again, very similar to this poll here. So clearly they're not getting a ton of love nationally. Now, the Vikes scored a 77.9 grade here. So that's slightly above average, but not very good. To give you an idea and feel for what teams they're grouped in with, the Raiders were 1 spot ahead of them. The Cowboys were 1 spot below them. So you're talking 2 playoff teams from last year, both which have high expectations this season as well. The full deep dive, here you go. Overall roster minus the quarterback, they got an 80.3. That's 17th. Quarterback, 77.5. That's 17th as well. Coaching, they ranked 19th. Draft, they ranked 21st. And front office, they got a 78. That's 21st as well. Nothing like bad per se, but nothing elite or even very good. Highest scoring grade of all 5 categories would be the overall roster itself, with the lowest being almost a tie for the draft and coaching. But honestly, Reggie, when I look at this list, I get it. There's a ton of unknowns, and that makes it difficult to grade out on paper. But at the same time, there's so many unknowns that a year from now, this report card could and should look a lot different. You've got a first-year head coach. No one knows what to expect there. Your draft class is always a wild card with no sure things. And oh yeah, you've also got a brand new front office for basically the first time in over a decade. So the Vikings, more than any other team, at least in this grouping, feels like could swing dramatically from this season to next once we all get a taste and feel for what their identity is top to bottom, with so many new pieces that are taking on roles for the very first time in their careers.
I think it's interesting looking at some of this. It's really, really good scouting report, I feel like, from some of the best guys over at ESPN. Their biggest worry, it says, can O'Connell and Adolfo-Mensah truly build a productive partnership that leads to wins, division titles, and titles? Interesting. They say there appears to be a culture shift, and the arrival of O'Connell bodes well for the productivity / versatility of the offense, while the defensive additions this offseason look great on paper. Now it all has to come together. And that's from Louis Riddick, who I really value his football acumen and his football opinions. I think he's pretty much on base with where I think we all are. I think here in Minnesota, I think the optimism is quite a bit, large, if you will, just because of the things that we've seen coming out of some of the early practices that we've seen, some of the things that O'Connell brings, some of the energy. Riddick mentioned the culture shift. All the players have been on record talking about how different it is right now as opposed to even just 6-7 months ago under Zimmer. And I think that's going to be interesting to see how things come together. Like Riddick said, it all looks good on paper. We talked about so many times how, the Vikings have so much talent on this team and how, if they can put it together, they could be one of the better teams in the league this year. But can they put it together? You got a first-time head coach. He's still going to be figuring some things out. He's got some great people around him that have been in the fire, been there, done that. And I think he'll lean on them and just lean on, his preparation and the people that have helped him get to this point to kind of lead the Vikings into the future and hopefully lead them to some successful games early on and often. But they have some really good pieces that if he utilizes them in the right way, they could be dangerous. And so I'm interested to see how they, bring it all together. I think putting them at 19 is fair just because there are some question marks. They are largely unproven. There are some things that need to happen for them to kind of take that next step and really kind of put them in that top tier of a team. But man, if health is there, I think you really put them up there with anybody as far as competing.
Like you said, Louis Riddick said, it looks good on paper, but apparently it doesn't look that good because they only rank 19th because people are holding back here because they want to see it first. It's got all the potential on paper, but there's too many unknowns. There's so many different variables going on with this team right now. So many new pieces, a lot of unknowns. But if you're going to take a big gamble on the Vikes this year, you got to use BetOnline. BetOnline, your number one source for all your betting needs, stats, news, and info. BetOnline makes betting easy. Go to betonline.net today to learn more. That's betonline.net, where the game starts. Back to the list here. A couple things I want to touch on. First and foremost, quick look at the rest of the NFC North. Packers tied for third with the Rams. Lions and Bears all the way at 28 and 30. I always see the Lions so closely grouped with the Bears, and I got to tell you, I just don't think the Lions are nearly as bad as the Bears. I just don't. And the other thing that stuck out is this. Top two teams are from the AFC, Bills, Chiefs. Next two teams, NFC, Packers, Rams. Then you've got to run on 8 of the next 10 best teams in the entire NFL are all from the AFC. Only the Bucks and Niners from the NFC cracked the top 14. So 10 of the top 14 teams are from the AFC. Quite the shift if you just step back and look at a big picture from the last decade, when you had so much firepower in the NFC for all those years, the power has shifted to the AFC, and it feels like it's here to stay for the foreseeable future with so many young, star-studded teams and quarterbacks, Lamar, Burrow, Mahomes, Josh Allen, Herbert. While in the NFC, your top two guys, Brady and Rodgers, may not be around in 2-3 years. Imagine the lopsided balance then. Thoughts on the NFC North and the entire rankings as a whole, just kind of what jumps out to you?
Yeah, the NFC North is one of those divisions where you're just like, well, the Packers are up there because they have one of the best quarterbacks in football. But, I think most people are hoping that the Vikings take a step forward because of Kirk Cousins. They've invested in the guy. They've hitched their wagon to him. O'Connell says he's excited to coach him again. And he's really the variable here. It's like if he goes well, the team is going to go well. Can he elevate his play to that next level to compete with guys in that division? Really the biggest person to compete with is Aaron Rodgers because, when you're talking about him out-dueling Jared Goff, I think you take Cousins in that. And, Justin Fields is a talented young quarterback, but I still think you give the advantage to Cousins in that matchup as well. So it's really just kind of competing against the Packers and just God bless against the rest. Although I do think Detroit is going to be much improved, 5, 6, maybe 7 wins this season, depending on how well Jared Goff plays. He's going to have some very good complementary pieces around him, and they're really kind of building that team in the right direction to, I guess, their hope is to be a bully, moving forward. Maybe not this year, but, give it some time, give it some patience. They're going to try to compete. As far as the outlook of the whole thing, I do think is interesting. You talk about how some of the best quarterbacks, especially the best young quarterbacks, are in the AFC now, and then one of the better ones in the NFC, Russell Wilson, he's now in the AFC, and so you look around the NFC, and you from division to division, you got guys like Rodgers, Cousins. Go down south, and you got
Kyler,
Jameis Winston, and Tom Brady, and you got Kyler Murray, and
Dak Prescott.
Yeah, and it's just like a lot of those guys are good, but like a lot of those guys are probably not in the top 15. Other than you when you got a AFC West division stacked with quarterbacks, and then you go to like the NFC East, and you look at guys like Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, Daniel Jones, and whoever they're going to put out there in Washington. I guess it's going to be Carson Wentz, but it's just like, like the power is clearly on the AFC side, and it's going to be a slugfest. And I think if you're on the NFC, you got a couple guys, you got to get through Stafford. You got to get through Brady, and other than that, you got to get through Rodgers. And other than those guys, you feel like you have a really good chance at trying to get towards the Super Bowl if you just get hot and strike fire. You've seen it several years ago. The Rams with Jared Goff, they struck fire, had some luck go their way, and really just kind of vaulted themselves into the Super Bowl. We saw what happened once they got into the Super Bowl. That was gross. But I think on the NFC side, you're like, look, as long as we got a chance with those guys, because we don't have to get to some of the more elite quarterbacks in the NFL till we get to that other side. And if they get to that other side, it's the Super Bowl.
A couple things with that too. Those teams that you just mentioned, seems like their window is pretty tight. You got about 2 more years max. Rodgers, Brady, probably out the door here soon. And then Stafford and the Rams, just the way that team was built, trading all those early picks, getting all those vets, the way they're paying all these superstars. Maybe the cap is a myth, truly, but I think that each team has a window of about 3 to 5 years. Obviously, the Rams are in the peak of that window right now. They're trying to hope to get 1 more, maybe 2, but after that, there will be a little rebuild here. So after these next 2 years, big picture, maybe Rodgers is gone, maybe Brady's finally gone, and then maybe that Rams Super Bowl window's out of it too. Now you look at the NFC, and now it just seems wide open. Maybe a team like the Philadelphia Eagles start to progress, and maybe Jalen Hurts takes the next step. Could be anybody, though. That's my point. AFC, though, boy, are they stacked for a while. The other last one here, just kind of a quick surprise team. Colts, all the way up at number 9, considered a top 10 team in the league. They didn't even win the division last year. That one I thought was interesting. Obviously, a lot riding on Matt Ryan, but they got a great roster there and a front office that may be one of the best front offices in the league. And then the Bengals, talk about going from worst to first. They were at the bottom of the NFL, not just the division, the NFL for 30 years, it felt like. And now they're 6th on this list. They don't rank anything lower than 12th in the draft, 11th in coaching, but overall roster, they rank 5th according to this. And their quarterback, Joe Burrow, apparently the 5th best quarterback in the league according to this ranking too. So just some interesting different nuggets there, but just pretty cool to see these rankings, get some healthy debate going. We want to hear from you. Go comment on the YouTube channel. Let us know what you think. 55 days until week 1 of the NFL season. Vikings training camp just 1 week away. Until then, Reggie and I got you covered every step of the way. All right. To baseball we go. The MLB All-Star game was last night, and who else but your very own Byron Buxton helped the AL team beat the NL 3-2 thanks to his home run. Luis Arraez went 1 for 2. Low-scoring affair for an All-Star game. Not many fireworks or highlights, but the AL gets his 9th win in a row over the NL. Reggie, any highlights or any moments that stuck out for you?
It's funny looking at some of the Twins Twitter after the game. And Buxton hit what turned out to be the game-winning home run, and most Twins fans were like, Buxton got robbed. Of course it was the Yankees that got the MVP player. And it's just like, okay, guys, like we get it. It's okay. Like Stanton had a 2-run home run that tied the game. Maybe they gave it to him because his home run went 457. and Buxton's went 425. All right, maybe that was it. But Buxton did strike out his first at bat, so maybe they felt like they gave it to a guy who was a little bit more consistent over a couple at bats. I don't know. I think it was a toss up. People were saying that if it wasn't a quote unquote small market team, and if Buxton was playing for the Yankees, then maybe Buxton would have won MVP over Stanton. But it is what it is. They got their little bonus, for their All-Star game appearance, and then probably a little bit more for the All-Star game win. AL team just always dominant in this game, even after Goldie gave the NL that quick lead to start with the 2-0 lead on the 2-run bomb that he hit.
Man, he's good.
He's him.
He's a beast.
That's my team, by the way, St. Louis Cardinals. Book them.
Stand up.
Anyway, but no, I thought the game was like highly entertaining. I really enjoyed some of the wrinkles that they added. I know that's not something that they can do throughout the course of the season, especially in high leverage situations. Bases loaded, pitcher is trying to get out of a jam, and the announcers are like, "Hey man, so what do you think about throwing here? What are you gonna do to get out of this jam?" "Oh, I'm thinking slider. I don't know, maybe fastball. If I can locate it, I can get out of this inning." And then, all of a sudden it's a grand slam. He's just like, "Why am I even talking to you guys?" And so I think it provided some comedy yesterday, getting some of the guys mic'd up during the game. Some things worked, some things didn't. I don't really know what the purpose of the running David Ortiz was. That was a weird, like, big poppy segment. Yep. Whatever. He just kept running and saying, "Oh, I love you guys. I love you guys. Yeah, this is great. What's up with you? Oh man, I'm just out here in the dugout. All right, I love you guys." And he's just keeping it going. It's kind of weird, but whatever. But I thought the game was highly entertaining yesterday, and I enjoyed watching. I was really hoping for a tie in the ninth inning so we could have seen the home run derby off. I think that would have just given fans even more excitement last night. It was just like a repeat of the night before. The home run derby always gets people excited. So I was looking forward to maybe seeing that again, maybe Pujols and Miggy or somebody, having their signature moment on their way out. I thought that would have been cool, but all in all, I thought the game was highly entertaining, and I think they're on to something. Just make sure to get out of your own way, MLB, because they're still stuck between like tradition and fun,
right?
And those two things don't necessarily collide all the time. And so it's just like, get out of the way, MLB. Like, they were trying too hard.
Yeah, it's got to happen a little bit more, organically, I feel like. But seemed like for a while they were just gripping this bat too tight, trying too hard for a little bit. But back to Buxton, just so cool for Twins fans to see Buxton on that national stage do what he does best, just represent this small market team in front of the world in LA, in Los Angeles, and kind of get his 15 minutes of fame, so to speak. Gotta love it. Now fans want to see if Buxton can help the team win some World Series jewelry next, and you can too with your own jewelry from Blue Nile. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com, and Locked On Sports listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. Use code Locked On. That's code Locked On. Plus, every order insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. 3 more days of rest for the Twins before they start the second half out with 7 road games in a row, starting with the Tigers for a 2-game stint. That's Saturday evening, first pitch, 5:10 p.m. Central Standard Time. Rest assured, Reggie and I got you covered every step of the way. All right. Time has come. Favorite segments here. I'm putting Reggie on the hot seat with What Does It Mean, covering all the latest hot topics in Minnesota sports. First up, Vikings wideout Justin Jefferson needs 1,148 receiving yards to surpass Randy Moss for the most receiving yards by a player through his first 3 seasons in NFL history. He also needs 1,400 yards to become the first player ever to accomplish the feat in each of his first 3 seasons. So what does it mean when it comes to Jefferson's chances to break yet another prestigious record and entrench him into a class all by himself? It seems doable, Reggie, just from what we've seen. If he does this, though, where does it put him in the ranks of receivers in the NFL we've seen over the past few decades start out this hot early in their career?
Yeah, I think if he stays healthy, I think he probably breaks this Randy Moss record through like the first maybe 10 weeks, maybe.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I could
It's
see that
doable.
happening there. And then the 1,400 yards, like I see him breaking all of that. You know, we've talked about it on this show
Hmm.
before. I see him as being a 2,000-yard receiver this year. And, you know, I think he can rival the Cooper Cup season from last season, as far as like putting up triple crown type numbers. Obviously, he's going to have to compete with Cooper Cup again for that crown. I'm not really sure if anybody else is going to come close to that. You know, you think maybe Jamar Chase. I don't think that Devontae Adams is going to have the type of season that we're used to him having. I think he's going to still have a good season, but there's going to be an adjustment period, you know, coming over from an offense that you've played your whole career in to now, you know, you're playing with your college BFF, and, you know, you guys are going to have some chemistry, but I think it's going to take a quick second to really kind of get it going there. So, you know, answering your question, I do think that, you know, Justin Jefferson, I feel like is already a top 5 receiver in the NFL. And I think this probably propels him to top 3, top 2, you know, maybe to the top of the list next year. If he does what we think he can do this season, there's no way that you can put him lower than 2 or 3 next
Hmm.
season when it comes to the rankings and things like that. You know, I think, you know, the Madden rankings came out. I think they gave him a 93. You know, I
Stop
think that
it.
was a little low. You know, they
Stop
probably
it.
could have given him a little bit more respect on that just based on the things that he's done during his career so far. You know, he doesn't have that blazing speed, but the dude is super fast still.
Ran
You
a
know, I think
4.43. What do you want? What do you want from
exactly,
me? Come on.
exactly. Like, you know, I think, you know, when you put him and Jamar Chase in like a foot race, maybe Jamar edges him barely, maybe
Sure.
barely.
Yep.
But I
Yep.
think,
Yep.
you know, as far as just being an all-around receiver, that's the funny part, because when you talk about guys like Devontae Adams, you don't necessarily talk about his like breakaway speed and all that stuff, but they
Not at
still
all.
have him ranked as the top receiver in the league. But for some reason, you know, when you talk about Justin Jefferson, it's like, well, he's not a burner, you know, but he's just no. It's just like that. Why does that matter with him, and it doesn't, you know, matter to
Well,
other receivers? Just give him the title of being one of the best in the game, because all he does is make productive plays week in and week out and put up crazy numbers. And it seems like he's always open when Kirk throws him the ball, and he always finds a way to make big plays happen game in and game out.
speed rules in this NFL, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we put way too much stock in it when we get around to draft time and clocking the 40 times, things like that. Because go sit back and watch an offense run 70 snaps in one game. Just sit down and watch one game. How many times does a wideout actually just run straight for 40
Right.
yards during a single game in 70 snaps? 4 times, maybe 5. There's so much more to it.
Depending
It's so much
if
more
you're the
nuanced.
Bengals, if you're the Bengals, they send
Well,
Jamar
maybe.
Chase on a go route every
That's
series,
true.
it seems like. So
That's true. That's true. Speaking of Jamar Chase, I was just looking at some other records that could be broke. So you got Justin Jefferson entering year 3, could break all these records, Randy Moss's, et cetera, et cetera. Well, Jamar Chase needs 1,562 receiving yards to surpass Justin Jefferson for the most receiving yards by a player through his first 2 seasons in NFL history. Needs 1,250 receiving yards to join OBJ and Jefferson and Moss as the only players to accomplish the feat in each of their first 2 seasons in NFL history. So a lot of cool different side and sub stories going on in the NFL right now, but certainly everybody wants to know, can Justin Jefferson show up in this Kevin O'Connell offense and repeat and duplicate similar success to not only what we've seen, but now what we've seen from Cooper Kupp last season? All right, next one. What does it mean? The MLB draft took place while you were gone, Reggie, and the Twins selected shortstop Brooks Lee with the 8th overall pick and pitcher
mm-hmm.
Connor Prelip from Alabama. According to experts, both players were expected to be long gone by the time the Twins were on the clock, leaving the front office feeling like they got great value with both picks. What does it mean for the Twins farm system and young talent now added to the mix? Is this the cliche, quote unquote, we got the guy we wanted, or we never thought in a million years these guys would still be there? Or is there some actual truth to the fact that the Twins may have just put together a really solid draft?
Yeah, I think they did put together a really solid draft. When you talk about the duo of pitchers that went early, I don't think that they thought that Brooks Lee would be there. And according to Aaron Gleeman,
He
they
was
didn't.
going top 2, top 3 in some mocks, wasn't he?
Yeah. And it's like, well, like, okay, they got Correa right now. They got Royce Lewis, who, they're hoping comes back healthy from yet another knee injury and is the shortstop of the future. But maybe he's not. Maybe they put him at a different position. Maybe Brooks Lee is not. Maybe they can put him at a different position. But I think they are really excited about being able to get him because, they didn't think that maybe they had a chance. And you and I, we've talked about the draft ad nauseum on this show. What do we do? Best
BPA.
Player available. That's what they did. They didn't draft for need. They drafted best player available, and they felt like, with the guys that they got, they really got some good guys that could really help them in the future as they try to build the team to be sustainable moving forward. And I think that's exciting for them because they're just like, wow, like, how do we even get these guys? Like, I think, even some of the other picks, they felt like kind of fell to them, and they were able to really get a coup for some of the guys that they got that they can really build around moving forward. Maybe 3, 4, 5 years down the line, we're seeing these guys in the bigs really make an impact. And we look at this draft like, wow, like, how did they let that happen? Like, you got Rocker going after getting drafted last year. He got drafted again this year, and you're just like, all right, well, okay, cool. So you're just gonna let him fall to us? All right, well, we're gonna take him then. Like, don't outsmart this. Don't get too cute. Don't get too overly analytical. Get the best player there, and Brooks Lee was the best player there on their board, and they snatched them up.
Again, BPA, it sounded like this was not supposed to be a pitcher's draft. As we mentioned, I think a week before leading up to the draft, Twins were supposed to be on the clock with no pitchers even gone, but 2 of them go, as you mentioned, and hence why some talent kind of fell in their lap. As far as Connor Brelup, he's coming off Tommy John surgery from Alabama. So that's not great, right? But we know this is a long-term plan. Hopefully he can come back healthy. But before the Tommy John surgery, this guy was at least rumored and mocked in some cases by some MLB experts to go in the top 10 picks. Twins
they got
get
him
at pick 48, and this dude, couple quick stats here before the injury: 0.96 ERA, 0.71 WHIP, 45.6% Ks, only 6.8% walk ratio. So yeah, he was at Alabama. It notes maybe not all of these stats were against like high level competition, but he's a southpaw, 6'2". He's got a 96-mile-an-hour fastball, still figuring out the slider and changeup. There's potential there, man. So if he can stay healthy, again, it really does feel like the Twins may have got 2 kind of quote-unquote steals compared to where these guys were supposed to and projected to go. Put together a really solid draft, at least at the top. We'll see how it all shakes out here in a couple years. All right, that's a wrap. Back here tomorrow breaking down more Twins, Vikes, plenty more. Remember, like, rate, review, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Join us every day for another episode covering all the biggest topics in Minnesota sports. He's Reggie Wilson. Follow him on Twitter at Reggie Wilson TV and on KARE11. I'm Luke Inman on Twitter at Luke_Spinman. Tune in tomorrow to Superior Sports Arc, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota. For Reggie, I'm Luke. Until tomorrow, signing out.
Be blessed. Spread love today.